evening. It's a Monday, so don't be alarmed by that. Typically, One Take Live comes on Thursday evenings, but this is a special edition. We have Orange County Sheriff John Mina with us this evening. Thank you so much, Sheriff, for agreeing to be on with us.
Good evening, Monica. It's absolutely my pleasure to be on with you tonight, and thank you for doing this show and getting everyone the information they want to hear about.
Yeah, so One Take Live is a platform that is not unlike anything else you've seen or heard. It's not like radio or television. I don't have a political connection at all, and I'm not personally affiliated with a particular cause. However, I do use my voice as a community advocate, and I've been asked to provide this platform to get a better view on what has gripped this community, and that is the most recent deputy-involved shooting of 22-year-old Salaythis Melvin at the Florida Mall on August 7th. All right, so that's why we're here this evening. Okay? You got it?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So I read a quote today that said, when people don't know the story, they tend to make it up. So I wanted to use this platform for us to tell a story. And if you can, I know you were not there on August 7th, and you can't be responsible for everything, but you do set the tone and make the rules for what happened. What are you and your deputy saying? Because as we know it, the actual deputy involved in this, James Montiel, did not submit. He's not submitted his account as of yet about the shooting. He wasn't wearing a body cam. So what do you know, Sheriff?
So, I'm going to cover the general basics of what happened. And I think, as you know, and hopefully many people in our community know, that anytime that we have a deputy-involved shooting, it is investigated by an independent third party. That is the Florida Department of Law Enforcement. That investigation is then turned over to our state attorney's office for review as well. So we don't investigate our own deputies. I think everyone has agreed that is the best system. As a matter of fact, there are local representatives that are trying to get that changed in the legislature so that all law enforcement agencies do what we do, and that is have the Florida Department of Law Enforcement investigate that shooting. So on August 7th, deputies made contact with several individuals at the Florida Mall. 3 individuals followed the instructions of law enforcement. 1 individual, later identified as Salaythis Melvin, did flee. He was armed with a loaded, stolen firearm, and at some point our deputy did shoot Salaythis. They gave him medical aid, and unfortunately he succumbed to his injuries. And I will say that anytime someone of that age dies, it is a tragedy. But I think it's important to know that we are committed to remaining open and transparent as much as we can. Remember, it's not our investigation. Luckily, we do have body cam footage. The deputy who was involved in the shooting does not have a body-worn camera assigned to him. And so let me just cover that portion. When I got to the sheriff's office, the only deputies that were assigned body-worn cameras when I first got there were uniformed patrol deputies. I said, that's not acceptable. So what we started doing over the past year and a half is getting all of our school resource deputies body-worn cameras, which has taken place, all of our SWAT deputies body-worn camera, which has taken place, and all of our canine deputies body-worn cameras, which has already taken place. So the phase in that body-worn camera deployment is basically the rest of everyone. So those deputies who may be in a plainclothes assignment, but sometimes make arrests like that one at the Florida Mall, are all getting body-worn cameras. And luckily, one member was there and did have a body-worn camera assigned. Also there's a lot of misinformation out there.
Before you go any further, let me just ask some questions in here. One of the things that everybody is asking, sir, and I know that you're aware of that, is because JAM unit, they're assigned specifically to take down gang members. We do understand that they would be in plain clothes, but you have a situation where someone gets out of an unmarked car in plain clothes, does not identify himself, someone would take off running, could be in fear for their life. That could be one thing. And then at the extent of the spacing between Salaythis and the deputy, could he not have tackled him? Could he not have tased him? You know, how would you know in that short instance, A, that you saw the gun, he saw the gun, he did run, okay? But he did not turn from what we can see to pull a gun. And I think that's what the community is upset about. He never pulled the gun. In fact, when he was shot, he had a hand up. Then he laid on the ground, Sheriff Mina, the gun and the phone that was in his band, it shot out from him, so he was no longer armed. But I mean, he's running away. What is the procedure? I think that's one of the big questions here. What is the procedure on a fleeing person? He's running away. There are too many times in our community, and you have to see this. And as the sheriff, I need you, when we're talking about transparency and we're talking about community engagement, we've been on several panels recently. When will the deputies begin to realize that it will take more than to just shoot, to kill? Because you got to think about that. There's so many other tactics that could have been used. Would you not say that?
Okay, a couple things. Let me cover the first part of what you mentioned, the deputies in plain clothes. The other three people there clearly knew that they were deputies. They did have markings on their body-worn armor that says deputy sheriff, and they followed the instructions of law enforcement. And I will say, Monica, that we arrest hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people every single year who are carrying firearms. And further, we come into contact with thousands of people every single year that are armed either illegally or legally with firearms. And that's of all races, of all ethnicities. And those interactions are resolved peacefully because the person followed the instructions of law enforcement. As far as our procedures, when using deadly force, our deputies have to follow the law, have to follow our policy, have to follow their training. And if they can articulate that they were in fear for their life or someone else's life, then they are authorized to use deadly force. But that is all part of the investigation. So I'm not defending or absolving anyone of anything, but what I'm trying to get out to the community is let the investigation play out. Okay, this case is going to be turned over to our state attorney's office. I'm sure our current state attorney, Aaron Sayala, or our future state attorney, Monique Worrell, are going to look at this case extremely critically. Okay, and these decisions are made in a split second. So let's not be quick to judge our deputies in a split second. This is not a George Floyd incident where this was 8 minutes long. This happened in a millisecond, in the blink of an eye.
And because it happened in a millisecond, in the blink of an eye, it brings so many questions, all right? It may not be a George Floyd where that was a premeditated, and I almost don't want to say premeditated. This happened in a split second, and that's why there's so many questions. And the questions lie in, what is the policy? And may I see some of the questions, please? What is the policy in shooting someone who is fleeing? What is the distance? And even assigned to him. I'm reading some of the questions.
So, Monica, there is no set distance. The officers have to, or the deputies have to be articulate that they were in fear for their life or great bodily harm of themselves or someone else. So, and I'll give you a perfect example of that. Our dear friend, Deborah Clayton, was involved in a very similar situation, and it happened in a second, and it cost her life. So these interactions are real. They are sometimes very deadly for both suspects and for deputies alike. So what we're asking is, please just follow the instructions of law enforcement.
One of the things that people are still saying, okay, I understand. I see what you're saying. But the fact that still he didn't have his own body cam, we're seeing this from a different angle. He didn't have identifiable paraphernalia on. Did he not say who he was as he took off after Salaythis? And Why not let him get away? I mean, he was running away. I think that is the biggest question. We talked about there being a second pair of eyes. The FDLE has it now. You're saying that it will go to the state attorney's office. I'd like to know a timeline on that. And is it possible that the DOJ, Department of Justice, can look into this?
So as far as the timeline, and I can only go off my past experience, both as chief in Orlando and he now as sheriff at the Orange County Sheriff's Office, FDLE usually takes between about 60 and 90 days for their investigation, and they do turn it over to the state attorney's office. And frankly, Monica, we're waiting on a number of deputy-involved shootings that are still sitting at the state attorney's office for their review. And I know that doesn't bring comfort to the community, but what should bring comfort is these cases are highly scrutinized, and we're looking at them independently, right? The Florida Department of Law Enforcement and the state attorney's office are looking at these cases independently to make a determination on what exactly happened. And as far as the DOJ, we're definitely open to any type of scrutiny or further review.
Who can make that suggestion? Would that be from your office to send it to the Department of Justice?
Anyone can make that suggestion. It's clearly on their website that anyone who believes that the DOJ should get involved can formally contact the DOJ. I don't know if the family has done that, but I'll open ourselves up to any type of scrutiny, any type of investigation.
And I know that you're saying that you're open to scrutiny, but one of the things that we have been talking about constantly, Sheriff Mina, in all of our advocacy platforms is this transparency, and the community right now is not feeling a very transparent response. A couple of things. August 7th was the shooting. The family, the lawyers, the community, Sheriff, asked for those videos. Okay, they were not released. They were slow to release. Then 11 days later, you know where I'm going with this, on August 18th, 15 minutes before the polls closed, we begin to see the video. The timing was not right. We get word that it was in your office at about 3 that afternoon. Could it not have been shown earlier? Could it not have been shown the day after? The timing, Sheriff Mina, was not good. And I have a company that's called Consider Your Image. That's not a good look.
Let me say this, Monica. So long before I got to the sheriff's office, the policy in place was not to release any video of deputy-involved shootings. So I veered from that policy because I knew the community was concerned. So the video was released within 10 days of the actual shooting. On August 14th, a week before the election, I told the community, and it's on our social media, it was given to the press, that FDLE did not want us to release the video because they had not interviewed all the witnesses. Okay? Stop
right there. Stop. That is one of the things. That is one of the things that the attorneys and family are asking. Why are you all viewing it and then making the comments? If we're looking at transparency and for things to change, if you get a chance to look at the video, then stories can change.
So exactly. So, and Monica, we're talking about the shooting happened on August 7th. The video was released on August 18th. That's a very quick timeline. The Los Angeles Police Department has their policy, which actually turned into state law, says they'll release the video within 45 days. I think that's being very transparent that we released it. And so let me go back to what I was trying to say. A week after the shooting, I told the media, I put it on our social media, that we would release the video as soon as all the witnesses were interviewed. And that was at the direction of FDLE. They didn't want us to release the video at all. And we said, no, we're going to release it, but we need to know when. And they said, well, please hold on to it until we interview all the witnesses. The last interview was done on August 18th. Okay. And as soon as I got word, they had to redact the video. They had to contact the family, which took a little bit of time because we wanted them to see the video first. Okay. And I think if I had waited till the day after, people would have, got on me even more. Wait a minute, you're waiting till the day after the election? I told my team to release it as soon as it was available after the last person was interviewed per
You
the
mentioned,
Department of Law Enforcement.
I'm sorry, you mentioned after it was redacted, what was taken out of it? Because there are segments that are just, there's no audio, there's no visual. What was redacted? Is there
Well,
anything
so
that you can share with us?
yeah, so anytime that deputies are, and one of the pieces that was redacted, so after the shooting, a deputy was on their cell phone, they're putting in their personal code to call their sergeant, whatever. That all that kind of stuff has to be looked at, and with all the videos, there's a lot of footage that has to be gone through. So they did their due diligence, made sure everything, and it really wasn't that much redacted, but the things that need to be redacted were redacted and shown to the family, and then given to the media. And let's just be thankful that we do at least have some footage. Let's be thankful that there is something out there that we can review on and at least get an idea of what happened. But remember, this is a process. Let the Florida Department of Law Enforcement do their job. Let the state attorney's office do their job. And I think we've always been very open in this community about exactly what's going on. So that's the process right now. The FDLE, they're investigating it. They will hand it over to the state attorney's office when they're done.
I spoke with Attorney Carlos Haynes today, one of the two attorneys for Mr. Melvin's family, and what they're asking for as well there's two other videos, one from the actual incident right there, and then also the one from outside Dick's Sporting Goods. Will they be able to be seen, be able to be shown that?
Yeah, so any video that we have, and then we just got that public records request for them. Any video that we have will be turned over to the family, will be available to the public, because all the witnesses have been interviewed. So yeah, we're turning anything that the attorneys are asking for. We are putting in a public records request. Again, they have to be properly redacted, and then the families and the public will be able to see those videos.
So we're talking about what kind of a timeline? Because I mean, his family is watching, the attorneys are watching, our community is watching, and we just want to know a timeline, sir.
So I know the family had requested those videos be turned over to them by Wednesday. I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility. Like I said, I have to get with my team. I'm not even here this week, but I did agree to do this, and I don't think that's unreasonable.
So you say perhaps on Wednesday?
Correct.
Okay. The attorneys are also looking at some policy changes, and I want to share with you what some of those are. And you came in a year and a half ago and you said that you made some policy changes. You may want to consider some of these. They are asking the changes to the department's use of force policy, and we already talked about that. What constitutes a shot in the back as someone is fleeing? Do you not think, I still have to go back to that. Sheriff Mina, do you think that there was at all a possibility that that officer could have just continued chasing? We're in broad daylight. There are other shoppers out there too. Other people could have been included. This was a horrible thing for anyone to witness, and to see all of that point blank. You already had the person that you wanted. You had the suspect that you wanted. The necessity of getting Salaythis, and in this way, could it not have been handled differently? Just yes or no?
Yeah, and Monica, that's all part of the investigation. Okay, I'm not going to sit here and try to absolve someone or defend someone. That's not fair to the family. That's not fair to the deputy involved who made a split.
That's the question that you're asking.
Absolutely, and that's why we do an investigation. If I'm sure this community wouldn't want the sheriff to come out right after the shooting and say this was absolutely justified and there's no investigation. But that's not what happens. We have a third party that investigates this. We send it to the state attorney's office for full, complete, thorough investigation, and all those questions will be answered at the end of that investigation. It's no different than what happens all around our country every single time we have an incident like this.
And we understand that, but you know what, Sheriff Mina, we're living here in Orlando, and it's hitting us here in our backyard. So you would have to, on the side of humanity, okay, because you are here to protect our community. And right now, we're not feeling protected by the deputies, by the officers who are paid to help keep a peace. They had peaceful protests right after this that didn't turn. They turned away from being so peaceful. There is word out about the rubber bullets. Let's talk about
So
that.
let me stop
Something
there.
was shot into them. Let's talk about that.
The rubber bullet rumor, that is absolutely unequivocally false. There were never any rubber bullets used. There were never any tear gas used. And I did notice the person who posted that on their social media took it down because it's absolutely false. The media was out there at that protest.
Hmm.
The media talking about rubber bullets or tear gas being used. So that's the part that I'm a little bit upset about. People are just putting this misinformation out there about rubber bullets. That absolutely unequivocally never happened. There were at least 3 media stations there, and you could ask them as well. So that had never happened. There was never any tear gas used. There was a protester who did bring a gun to a peaceful protest, which we're very upset about, and that's not right either. And that person was arrested.
I understand that. I also understand that one of the uh, peaceful protesters was arrested at the mall while shopping the next day. Not doing anything, not creating a ruckus of any kind. I just found this out right before we were getting ready to go to air. Um, what was the purpose of that? And I also was told, and I'm just giving you, I want to be the one that you can just, here's what the community is saying, just so you will know. I was also alarmed by the fact that we had some Trump supporters in the mall and they were shouting whatever negative slogans they shout, but nothing was done to them. So when you look at the balance, it's a little off, wouldn't you say?
So I think your issue is with the Florida Mall, not with the Orange County Sheriff's Office.
Well, it
So
was the sheriff's deputies that arrested him.
Well, so if the Florida Mall trespasses a person from their mall, and that happens every single day, it happens in restaurants and bars for whatever reason, they're a private business. They have the right to trespass someone from their property. If they call the sheriff's office and say they want this person trespassed because they violated our rules or whatever, we issue them a trespass warning. And if the person returns and the Florida Mall or whoever, whatever business wants them arrested, our hands are tied. We do have to arrest them. As far as the supposed Trump supporters, I did see some video of that. If the Florida Mall had contacted us and said, we want these people trespassed from the mall, we would have done the exact same thing.
All right, what some of the other questions are is in the training, and you remember when you were OPD and I went through the community training, and I do realize how quick it is, but they're asking now, the attorneys are demanding a policy change that bans shooting a fleeing suspect. I got to come back to that, and makes officers think twice before pulling the trigger. And again, it comes back to the timing. And Sheriff, again, what is the law to make arrest of in clothing that doesn't clearly say deputy on it? I mean, what is the policy for that? Is that going to begin happening more in our community where unmarked cars are going to roll in and men are going to jump out? And I think that's what our community is very afraid of.
So, Monica, and let me just say this. Unfortunately, in our community, we have some pretty violent gangs in our community who are responsible for numerous homicides in our community, numerous shootings in our community. And one of the ways that we try to stop and prevent that is through the use of surveillance, through the use of unmarked cars. I'm very confident that because of that, my deputy sheriffs have prevented multiple homicides. They've prevented multiple shootings because unfortunately, these gang members are extremely violent. They carry guns at all times, and they are a threat to our community. So the community does have to throw a little bit of trust into us that we're going to do the right thing. We're going to be going after the bad guys. And yes, sometimes that does take, using unmarked vehicles.
Well, I think that we need to be more transparent when these incidents do happen and let everything roll. The attorneys are also asking the sheriff's deputies to change the policy, allowing deputies involved in shootings to review body camera video before providing their statements. And we did talk about that earlier. They're also calling on any deputy involved in a shooting to be suspended without pay. And I understand that Montiel is on, he's been suspended, but he's still getting paid, or he's on desk duty. What's happening with him?
So
And
again,
he'll
Monica,
do his own report. I'll come back and ask that.
we haven't determined that the deputy has done anything wrong. So why would we suspend him without pay? So yeah, you're talking about people who they go out every single night and they risk their lives for this community. Our own deputies, our own officers here in Orange County, Orlando, have been shot to death, and you know this, protecting this same community. So why are we going to suspend them without pay before we even have all the facts, before the investigation is even done? You know, the fact of the matter is he was out there doing his job, trying to arrest violent felons. Okay, and this incident happened. The person did have a stolen loaded firearm. Okay, and there was an incident. Let us investigate it. Let's get to all the facts before we're ready to condemn anyone.
I'm standing in the sense of, the community is standing in the sense of, we didn't know it was a stolen gun before the deputy ran after him. That's one of the things that is still there. He didn't pull it out. He never pulled it out. He was running away for fear of his life, perhaps. So if you get two people afraid, that's where we are in our community.
Monica, I've watched that video numerous times, and you know, we all have the luxury of watching that video, rewinding, going back, watching it again. Our deputy did not have that luxury of rewinding that video. He made a split-second decision. Okay, and I don't think it's fair to say, well, we saw the person do this, we saw the person do that. The video is actually not that clear. So let's let the investigation play out. Let's wait till we have all the facts before we're judging our deputies.
And I understand that, and I'm hoping that by Wednesday, you're saying perhaps by Wednesday, it can get over to the state attorney's office, is what we're saying, that perhaps Wednesday?
The investigation? Absolutely not. You would have to talk to the Florida Department of Law Enforcement about that. If you're worried about the videos that the attorneys asked for, I'll get with my team tomorrow. We're going to release them as soon as practical.
Okay. What would you say to Salaythis Melvin's family from a humanity side? And it's a hard comment coming from your office, but what would you say to them right now?
I would say, and let me just say this, Monica, our sheriff's office took the time to meet with the Salaythis family and their attorneys 3 days after the shooting. And what I would say is that, I'm a father of two boys, okay? And I would be just as upset as they were if something happened to my son. But just trust the process. Let us investigate that. And I'll say, and I said this earlier when I first started, it's a tragedy anytime someone that young dies. Like I said, I have two sons myself. I feel for them. My heart goes out to them. I can't imagine the pain they are going through, but let's let the investigation get completed, and we will try to be as transparent as possible and know that in many respects, that there's not a lot of information that we can control because the investigation is not in our hands. It is in the hands of the Florida Department of Law Enforcement and the state attorney's office.
One last question. There were racial slurs that were heard on the tapes, and I know that you are aware of those. One of them had to be traced over at, I think that you've already said that the N-word was not said, but what about something that I heard today in one of my conversations, when one of the deputies heard that Salaythis was not dead, 7. He said, is it a 7? Do we have a 7? And he said, oh man, like, I'm not understanding that response.
Well, and I have no idea what was going on in that deputy's head, and I don't want to speak for them, but it is something that we're definitely taking a look at. As far as the racial slur, we were just as concerned as everyone else because the way it sounded. We did take that audio to Full Sail University, had their audio experts look at that, and they again unequivocally said There was no racial slur. They gave us the exact verbiage of what the deputy said, and it was in relation to a CPR mask and getting Salaythis the care that he needed. So again, that was some of the misinformation that was put out there by people who just seemed to want to stir things up, and that absolutely did not happen.
Okay, I think I have to just one last question. Once Salaythis was down and he was turned over to be administered the CPR, should not his hands have been uncuffed so that he could lay flat? And maybe that may have helped? What's that?
No, you don't need to unhandcuff someone to do CPR. And think about that, Monica. Why take the time to unhandcuff them when you could be doing compressions, when you could be trying to find the wound and put on direct pressure? That the handcuffs have nothing to do with the first aid and does not prevent proper first aid from being given.
Well, and again, Sheriff Mina, you and I have been on many platforms together, so I don't want this to be a personal affront. It's just, like I said, I was asked to use the platform to just come and ask some questions. And so these are the questions that our community wants to know. And that CPR question came up twice. It's like he could have been leveled flat on the ground before, administering the compressions. And they were they were given on the left side of his chest and not in the center. I mean, people are looking over and over and over at the videos. And if you'll see, I'm wearing a Just Breathe shirt on. I would like our community, your deputies, our community, to just breathe for a moment. Just breathe for a moment and revisit this so that maybe some things will be learned from it. But if you had to say that something you've learned from this moment, what would that be? And that'll be your last word. What have you learned from this? Because we're in the spotlight.
What I have learned from this, Monica, is that as transparent as I think that we are, as transparent that I think that we have always been, I guess we could be even more transparent. And doing forums like this or talking to people in the community would really help prevent a lot of the misinformation that has gotten out of there. And you talked about it. Our deputies don't have the luxury to sit there and rewind and look at that video over and over and over again. They have to make split-second decisions. They're not thinking about exactly what they're doing as far as well, should we take the time to unhandcuff them, or should I take time to find the actual bullet hole and apply direct pressure, or should I take the time to actually start those compressions, which could have saved his life? So those are the things they're all thinking about in real time, not with the luxury of looking at a video. So, I enjoy the scrutiny, okay? I think law enforcement is one of the most complex and difficult professions in the world. It is also the one of the most scrutinized, and it needs to be, okay? But, again, I'll also say we'll be as transparent as possible. Please know that, we're waiting on the Florida Department of Law Enforcement and the state attorney's office to kind of investigate this case. And make their decisions before we move forward. But I do want to thank you for having me on and letting me get some of this information out to you.
Well, you can come back on anytime you're ready if there's some more information. And again, I say I'm not TV, I'm not radio. I'm just, as a community advocate, using a platform to just get the word out there. And I hope that integrity is questioned. I hope accountability is questioned. And I hope that the word transparency from here on in is not just going to be a cliche, but that your sheriffs, you will continue to be transparent so that misnomers, mistakes like this, there's a lot here that we feel are mistakes. And when I say we, I'm on the other side. I'm not a sheriff's deputy. I'm part of our community. And we just need to have these breathable conversations from time to time. So I do hope you'll come back on.
Absolutely. And Monica, let me just say that, I'm part of this community as well. And I care deeply about everyone in this community. So happy to come back on if more information develops.
All right. And please reach out to me as I will reach out to you, sir.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching a very special and exclusive conversation with Orange County Sheriff John Mina.